and welcome to Wax Political, a public primary debate between the two candidates seeking the Oklahoma Democratic Party's 2018 nomination for Commissioner of Labor. My name is Trace Savage, and I'm the editor-in-chief of NonDoc.com, an independent journalism company based in Oklahoma City. NonDoc is proud to present tonight's debate in conjunction with several nonpartisan partners, including Let's Fix This, Generation Citizen, and Women Lead Oklahoma, an organization devoted to the involvement of women in politics. Women Lead is also a financial sponsor of tonight's event, along with the AFL-CIO and Freedom Oklahoma. Some quick information about each of those groups. As I mentioned, Women Lead Oklahoma is a nonpartisan and nonprofit organization dedicated to the engagement and involvement of women in civic life. They help women affect change through education and resources that encourage community and civic action. Freedom Oklahoma works to secure equality and legal protection for the LGBT community, women, queer youth, and other marginalized communities through advocacy, public education, and coalition building. And last but not least, the Oklahoma AFL-CIO is a federation of 230 local labor unions that represent 100,000 working Oklahomans, including teachers, firefighters, engineers, pilots, public employees, healthcare professionals, plumbers, and more. The AFL-CIO encourages its members to engage with the government to advance workers' rights. And we would like to give a special thank you to the owners and host of this event here in this wonderful room, this wonderful space. John Dunning and his wife Anita have welcomed us into the historic Penn Theater. They run Trolley Stop Record Shop, so if you're like me and you've got a vinyl player in your living room, stick around afterwards and expand your collection just a little bit. They've got a great selection. Before we start, I also want to mention that Brent Dismukes is an independent seeking this office and will appear on the November general election ballot with the winner of the Democratic primary, as well as the winner of the GOP Labor Commissioner primary, for which we held a debate last week. That footage and then footage of this debate should be available on NonDoc's YouTube page, hopefully in the next few days. We'll try to get that done quickly. As you can probably tell then that NonDoc, Let's Fix This, Generation Citizen, all of the partners we've been working for are attempting to host political debates this primary season. All the journalists we're here working with as well. And we are committed to doing that. We're committed to trying to have many debates as we enter the runoff period as well as the general election. We think it's important that candidates are able to stand in front of the public and answer questions and not just advertise on TV and those sorts of things. With that, he's a political reporter for KWTV News 9, does a great job. He covers the Oklahoma State Capitol during the legislative session and has covered stories of national importance across the country during his career. Next to him is Claire Donnelly, who's a reporter and morning show host for Oklahoma City NPR member station KGOU. She previously worked on the city desk at WBEZ in Chicago, and she holds a master's degree in journalism from Northwestern University. And Brianna Bailey on the end is a reporter for The Frontier, an online publication based in Tulsa, readfrontier.org. And then she previously worked at the Oklahoman and has a bachelor's degree from the University of Oklahoma in journalism like I do. We're old friends. So thank you guys for being here. Without further ado, that's a long introduction. We flipped a coin earlier to see who gets to give the opening statement, and that will be Fred Durrell, followed by Mr. Sam Mis-soum. So we have 2 minutes each for your opening statements. Tell us about yourselves, and let's start the debate, guys.
Good afternoon. My name is Fred Durrell, and I'm running for the Labor Commissioner, or as it's Commissioner of Labor. We have 5 candidates that are in this race. We have 2 Democrats, and we have 3 Republicans, and then there's 1 independent. I believe that I'm the most qualified with my education, my background, and the experience that I have. A little bit about me: I've got 38 years as an active union member, 6 years as a retired union member, or still active in a retiring chapter. I'm HR, I'm a human resource specialist at Spirit Aero Systems, and again, I've had the experience about taking people with different views, bringing people together, and coming to common solutions. I don't make promises that I don't keep. I don't make statements just to make them so it's a feel-good thing. I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear unless that's what I believe to be true. Because in essence, when you do that, you lie. We've had enough lying politicians. Again, this is Commissioner of Labor, not insurance, not human rights. It's Commissioner of Labor. So with that,
Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Mis-soum, you have 2 minutes as well, and you do not have to use it all. Josh McBee with Non-Doc down here is timekeeping for us. He's thrilled to do so. He's filling in.
Can I take his 1 minute?
You get 2. If he saves it, he gets to hold that for the next year's budget. So.
Yeah.
I thought he was telling me I was 1 minute over.
Oh no.
I just want to keep up. Okay. All right. First of all, I want to thank everybody here for coming out tonight. I want to thank my wife for dealing with my little baby tantrums. I want to thank my opponent Fred for his service in the military as well as in industry and academia. I want to thank Non-Doc and Tress for dealing with my online social media bullying. So I apologize, Tress. My name is Sam Mis-soum. I went to Auburn University where I did advanced materials engineering. I moved out here to work for an old pipeline company. At night, I went ahead and got my master's in business with an elective in finance and sports management at night. And then, as a thank you gift from the company, I was let go right around the time when oil was dropping hard. Since then, I tried lots of business ventures. Most of them failed. Finally, a couple survived enough to let me get married and self-fund my way here tonight. I am the underdog. I am 30 years old. I am the youngest candidate in this race. But as an underdog, I will claw, scratch my way up and defend the interests of Oklahoma's labor and workforce. Tonight's the only time you'll see me stick to a script because I feel like this position needs to be redefined. And I make this example like what Baker Mayfield was to the quarterback position, leaving the box when you have to, making passes when you have to, and doing the things that you're not comfortable with doing. And trying to eke out the win. Now, probably my OSU alumni are going to get mad at me for saying that, but I like to say I'm a man, I'm 30. I'm a man, I'm 30. Now, I hope during this debate, Fred can honor a widely accepted convention, and that's when Ronald Reagan told Walter Mondale, I will not make age an issue of this campaign. I'm not going to exploit for political purposes my opponent's youth and inexperience. Haha. So,
Well, you can.
yeah. So I did have more to say, but I will just wrap it up there. And if anybody wants to see my plan while we're going through the debate, go to sambob2018.com, the Better Oklahoma Blueprint. So I'll have to wrap it up there.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sam. So we're going to go into round 1 of our questions here. We've kind of categorized them. And this round's title is Labor Omnivincit, which is the state's motto, Labor Conquers All. Aaron, you have the first question, which will go to Fred Durrell. In this round, candidates will have 1 minute to answer both of them, and both will answer each question. So, Aaron, your question to Fred.
Mr. Durrell, tell me, what do you think is the current state of labor in Oklahoma, and what do you think workers in the state expect from their next labor commissioner?
Well, the state of the workers, when you look at, our unemployment's gotten better, right? But the whole focus behind the labor commissioner is to foster, promote, and develop for the welfare of workers. I don't believe that's being done when you promote for opportunities of advancement. So you don't hear much about workers. You hear a lot about business. The reality is this: it takes business to have workers. It takes workers to have business. This has got to be a balance, a win-win. I don't see a win-win in where we are today. When you look at the legislature, you look at the things that have happened, you look at the workers' comp legislation that supposedly saved money, but yet it cuts the benefits of workers. There's a number of issues that are wrong out there. The problem is that we've got other issues that are out there that are legislative, education, those type of things. So I think the workers that I've seen, they want a fair wage. They want a living wage. We can't continue on as a state. We run 48, 49, or 50 at low.
And so just to be clear, this is very casual in some ways, so you can always finish your thought. This is not a hard stop. And one other thing, just to both of you gentlemen, if you can kind of swallow that microphone so that we can get good audio recording. So were you complete?
No, I wasn't. So we can't continue. We rate 48, 49, or 50, depending on when you look at healthcare access, when you look at education. We have a lot of pressing issues in this state. Federal issues, things that are important. My focus is on the labor commission.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mis-soum, your question as well. You want to repeat that, Aaron?
Yeah, I can do that. What is, in your opinion, the current state of labor in Oklahoma, and what do you think workers in the state expect specifically from their next labor commissioner?
I'd like to echo the sentiments of Mr. Durrell. I believe that the state of workers in this state is in shambles. I agree with his indictment, but I may disagree with the prescription to make it better. And why I say that is I do believe in moderation, having business come and meet labor in the middle. But I feel, historically speaking, and from what I've studied in history, is that sometimes I feel like that's a cover for, well, let business do as much as it wants, or it'll pick up its bags and leave the state, or the workers will be screwed anyways. So I feel like they should expect a fierce advocate that, yes, will heed the interests of business, but the first and foremost interest should be their labor rights, their ability to unionize and bargain and demand the requisite benefits that they deserve.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mis-soum, Oklahoma is one of just 4 states that elects its labor commissioner as opposed to having it be an appointed position by the governor. Do you think it should stay an elected position, or do you think we should go to having it be appointed?
I think it should remain elected. And the reason for that is sometimes we give too much credit to the executive branch, where we think that if they win an election in said year, that they have a political mandate on all fronts. And in many states that are as diverse as Oklahoma, sometimes you can have a Republican governor and a Democratic lieutenant and so forth and so forth, even though we have straight ballot voting. So sometimes I think even the executive branch should be divided up to where the interests are accountable to the people and not just the boss who won that election in said year. So, and I think that's all.
Thank you. Mr. Durrell, same question to you.
Well, I would agree with Mr. Mis-soum, Sam. Okay, Sam, I would agree with him. I think the labor commissioner also has to be one that can reach out to both sides. So you have to be able to work with the legislature and work with that. But I do believe strongly it should be continue to be elected and not appointed, because by having it appointed, then it negates the need for reaching out across the aisle.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Durrell, what public policy objectives would you push beyond the basic requirements of your job description?
Excuse me? What? First of all, you confuse me when you call me Mr. Durrell. How about just call me Fred?
Okay.
Okay.
Fred, what public policy objectives would you push beyond the basic requirements of your job description as labor commissioner?
To me, paramount is workplace safety, and I know we have a safety program, but the thing is, you can't put a price on an employee's life. Safety is not an option, it's an obligation. You have to be your brother's keeper. We hear all kinds of things about safety, but it has to be a culture change, a behavior change. I believe that a living wage, as I mentioned too, would be a policy, even though that would be a legislative aspect. Part of what you run a business off of is numbers or metrics, and where we go. There's been
You're good.
So living wage, other is education, development, training for the workplace. So those are 3 things that, when we talk about policy, that I think is imperative for a future workforce. We talk about all kinds of things about bringing Oklahoma business here, but yet we don't seem to do anything to the wage earners, for the wage earners in the workforce.
Thank you very much, sir. So we'll go with Fred and Sam if that's what everybody would prefer. Sam, same question to you, sir.
So I mentioned the whole Baker Mayfield thing, even though I'm not an OU fan, I'm an SEC guy, and I make that apt comparison because I want to go outside of the box and how I take this job. Anyhow, anyhow, yeah, I thought I would lose votes that way. But anyhow, back on topic. I wanted to explore starting a mobile phone app for people to understand what are safe work practices and even if they don't know what they're doing or they think they see a violation, they can take a picture. It does not go to OSHA or the intermediary. We can nip it in the bud before business gets hurt in the long run. I want to look at consumer protection. Now you're going to say, what the heck does that have to do with Department of Labor? I think people that produce become consumers, and and we can't let the tumor of predatory business practices hurt our production economic workforce and economic background. Sorry, I see. And also, I agree with the Republican Miss Costello when she brought up mental health. I think it's very important for our schools and for the workplace, as well as if we ever get to this point, looking into employer accommodation for medical marijuana as it is medically prescribed for employers and employees.
Sam, the Department of Labor has safety jurisdiction over a lot of different things the public uses on a daily basis. Alarms, boilers, alternative fuels, elevators, amusement park rides, a lot of different things. In recent years, a change was made so the department did not retain the money it collected from fines issued to local businesses. Now, money from those fines is deposited into the state's general revenue fund. Do you support that policy, or would you rather go back to the older system that helps the agency self-fund, and why?
And I believe that's a good question. I think we should go back how it used to be. And I know the PC answer is going to be, we're going to be the police officers, and we can give out as many speeding tickets as we can, and that way we're going to be just rich police officers, living the life, But I think if there is a way to get a third party involved where those funds can be managed for other purposes that align with the mission statement of the Department of Labor, I think that would be useful. For example, I mentioned mental health. Mental health, I don't think there's a lot of funding for it here in Oklahoma, nonetheless, the United States. So a good idea, I think, would be is maybe those funds that are extra that are going back to the general fund thing, red reserve, maybe can be managed by a third party, independent third party management group, and it can be used for mental health programs or for maybe looking into the legislation for accommodating medical marijuana for employees that are prescribed it. And we can go down the line with what those type of monies could go and help, because I feel like when you have a leader that's in charge of a department or in charge of a team or whatever it may be, the best type of leadership is stewardship of that money. And the best stewardship of that money is when you treat it as your own. And I'm learning that just with this campaign. Just the yard sign is really expensive. So anyhow, having said that, I think if you elect the right person, and if you have the honest people in power, and if you have unbiased or third party people involved, it can be done right.
So just for clarification, then your preference would be that it goes back to the old system of collecting fines and that money being used to fund the department, as opposed to in the general.
Exactly, but as a caveat, as my little twist to it, having it managed by a third party, I don't know. Like a third party would be looking into how that gets managed per the priorities of the Department of Labor.
All right. Thank you very much. Mr. Durrell, same question to you. If you need it repeated at all, Aaron can.
I think I got it.
Okay.
I prefer the old way. We need a strong Department of Labor, and to provide the things that we need to make the changes that we need to make in this state. It needs to go back into the way it is as far as mental health, some of those other issues Sam alluded to. They're extremely important. That is not under the purview of the Labor Commissioner. Although they are extremely important, this is not the Department of Health and Human Services, not the Insurance Commissioner. This is the Department of Labor. And again, it's time that we started focusing on the wage earners in this state to have a better workplace instead of giving away. You see what's happened in the legislature. They can't even manage what they've had. And they've robbing Peter to pay Paul. I've been in this state my entire life. I'm a native Oklahoman. And it just pisses me off when I see irresponsibility that come out of so-called legislatures and leaders of this state to do the silly things they've done under the banner of Republican, Democrat. I don't care what you are. I want to represent the people of this state. not just a select few. Yes, I have a labor background. I have a business background, but I'm a fighter. I've been in the trenches. I know what it's like. I've been on strike. I've fired people. I've hired people. I've represented people. The whole gambit. I don't need training. I just need the opportunity to hit the ground running to start making a difference. And how you do that is you reach out to the stakeholders and get their input and their thoughts on how we make the Department of Labor better. Thank you.
There's our first round of claps this time. We had quite the chorus of claps in the Republican one.
About 90 Oklahomans die each year in workplace accidents. What would you say is the biggest workplace safety issue? And then how would you address that?
Well, that's 90 more people that should have died, right? To find I'm not sure the particulars, I've seen it on what industry they were, but when you have safety programs, I mean, again, it comes back to being your brother's keeper. We have to have a culture change. We have to have a behavior change on how we do things. Now, how we change that is you monitor the company, the business. I think there should be incentives for those good corporate players, for those that don't adhere to the safety rules. You know, people, they think that safety is a given, and it's not. Until you have to bury a coworker that you work with because of an unsafe practice or an accident, whatever it might be. All the time, there's ways that we can look to improve. To Sam's point about the app, great idea to have an app. There's a lot of apps out there that will tell you a number of different things education-wise. What I would do is identify where the problems are, what is needed, investigate it. But you can't, if the Department of Labor doesn't report the information to the BLS, or it's not funded appropriately to the BLS, because you can go back and look at data, and there's a lot of missing data since the former labor commissioner bragged on all the cuts that he made. So, thank you.
Wonderful.
Just to clarify, is there a specific workplace safety issue that you see being a problem for Oklahomans?
Specific, right off the top of my head, there are specific problems throughout the industries. You look at PPE and those things, but is there one that stands out? You know, manufacturing could be different than other areas, construction. I think education is going to help alleviate a lot of that, but again, it's got to be a behavior change.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sam, same question to you, sir. 2 minutes.
The thing that stands out to me when it comes to safety and the lack thereof, and what industry would be construction, Department of Transportation. I feel like, I was just driving today in Tulsa, and I noticed a couple of guys on the side of the road beyond their cones. It takes only looking down at your phone for half a second, and you can hit one of them. I remember a couple of years in Tulsa, there was a lady who was crying on TV because she had to pay her bills, and somebody was drunk, hit her. She lost all working, she was paralyzed from the waist down, and there she was out as a producer here in Oklahoma, and as a mom, and as a human being. So I feel like that's probably one of the most glaring things that at least I notice. Sometimes, I like to look at, when I look at problems that we face, I'm more of a look at the forest, but don't miss the trees, but look also at the trees, but don't miss the forest. I come from my engineering background, and why I say that is being very analytical and detailed in my approach to solving problems, and also noticing problems, diagnosing problems. Having worked also on a factory line in the oil pipeline industry, and at the same time working in laboratories, at the same time working with government here and in Canada for exporting products, as well as working with the white collar level. I've always thought that age is but a number, and where I may lack experience, I make up for it with quality experience at a younger age, as a receptive and a hardworking person that built everything from the ground up for himself. And I think that's all I have to say.
Well, that's kind of the same follow-up that Claire asked of Fred. Is there any one in particular issue that you're most concerned about in terms of safety?
I felt construction. I don't know, did you want to be more specific or?
I think that's good. Claire, it's your question.
No, that's good. I actually was more curious about if there is anything specifically you would change to address the construction safety issue.
I feel like, and I think also this would be a double purpose for not having traffic jams during the day, maybe working throughout the night. Maybe that will help with heat, with exhaustion. That will also help with less drivers on the road. Having those big spotlights up, having more of the PPE that's needed, the reflective gear. I know it's very simple, but even things as, when it comes to fuel mileage, just something as simple as keeping your tires well inflated will help with gas mileage. So sometimes the simple solutions are the best solutions that we kind of mock. So, those guys said that I saw in Tulsa, not one of them had a hard hat, not one of them had anything reflective on them. They just had a couple of button-up shirts and just hanging out by the side of the road while the Bobcat was excavating or whatnot. So I guess sticking to policy and being more strict about it.
Okay, this is a two-part question. So in 2016, Governor Mary Fallin formed the Occupational Licensing Task Force and to recommend improvements on the way Oklahoma issues various occupational licenses. And she named the Commissioner of Labor as chairperson. The task force issued a formal report this December recommending centralizing jurisdiction under one agency. It also said the state should reevaluate current policies that ban felons from obtaining certain occupational licenses. Please tell us whether you would support each of those recommendations and why or why not.
Could you repeat the first recommendation?
So the first recommendation was that centralizing jurisdiction under one agency for all occupational licensing.
All right. I don't want to say right straight out that I agree with Miss Mary Fallin, but that's going to don't use that against me. But I do believe in centralizing that only because I believe that in a way you can say that if you keep it centralized, there is the possibility for abuse for interests that can't be aligned with the good of the state. Can alter the outcome. But I feel like if a Democrat is elected, you'll get an honest leader and an honest person to run the department, to where centralizing it, I believe, the management of it will fall in line with not only the mission statement of the Department of Labor, but also what Democrats stand for. And on the second part, regarding felons, persons with felonies and their licensing, I guess as it stands, they cannot be licensed. Is that
for certain professions? It depends on what license it is.
I think there's
several that are restricted.
I think there should always be a review. It's always good to review what exactly those are, and doing a study. And I don't mean paying a third-party group to spend a lot of money to come up with a simple answer, but seeing if we've evolved on any particular issue, or if we still deem that person a significant threat to whatever threat or potential for threat in that field or industry of requisite licensing. So I support it being maintained as it is, but there's always the opening for review and reevaluation.
Well, I would say the task force, they did review, as I saw. I don't know the background of all those in the task force. So anytime you have a task force to make recommendations, then you should probably take those into consideration. So I would agree that make it centralized. I can't see how, to the point of having a license just to have a license is kind of ridiculous. I mean, we can get that carried away, but I think for those professions and those jobs that are appropriate, and I'm sure that they look into that. Second, as far as the relation to felons, to what Sam said, I agree that you got to review things on a case by case, and just in a generalized statement, generalized question that you ask about felons is what I'm talking about. You get into certain specific areas, then we might differ, not you and I, but differ with that. So in a generalized statement, yes, I believe there should be a review, depending on what that is.
Can I add?
Yes.
something? Just 2 seconds. And, I had mentioned earlier consumer protection, and I don't really mean it in the broadest sense, but even how this effort, even by Governor Fallon, is a form of consumer protection. Because if you can control these sorts of licensing, you can protect the Oklahoman consumer from being abused by these types of people that may not deserve such, and a producer is a consumer, and vice versa.
Thank you. Fred, do you have anything that you want to add?
Well, it comes to mind when you talk about licensing, I get concerned, and I haven't read the task force report. I started to, we got distracted. Sometimes you can get carried away. People can get carried away with license. So you have to have a license to walk in a neighborhood or walk down the street and those kinds of things. So I just want to bear in mind that, we would have to, based on the data and the information and consideration of what is considered.
Would you look at potentially getting rid of some licenses that we have for different occupations or certain things? I mean, that's been discussed by some people. Is that something that you guys have thought about?
Well, that again, you can look at some that should be, some that should not, but it would have to be on that. What is that doing? What's the benefit of having that? But more importantly, what's the benefit of not having it? I mean, if you take away a license to do something and you don't have the qualifications, then you're creating risk. So what's the reward versus the risk? So, again, unless it's specific that you're talking about, to generalize is really not, the way to really address it.
Gotcha.
I do. Fred, have you ever been in a union?
Have I ever been in a union?
I asked you first.
No, yeah. Yes, I have been.
Which union?
UAW.
What are your thoughts on unions' powers and problems?
The union's power is in the people. And through the collective bargaining process, Oklahoma, I think it's like 5% of the state is unions. I fully, completely support unions. I'm a union member. I'm a member of the retirees chapter, and I'm proud of it. Are unions perfect? No, but none of our societies or our families are either. It's democracy within a democracy. When you've got people that, we work with each other to make things better. Our voice is heard. And we just recently elected a new international president, Gary Jones, UAW. Gary Jones came from my local. Gary Jones is my only claim to fame, used to be my financial secretary. So, I've seen people grow up and go through that. So yes, I'm a supporter of unions. People say, well, you can't be a supporter of unions in business. Yes, you can. Because the reality is this, you got a pie, and everybody gets a piece of that pie. That pie is a certain size, right? The bigger that pie is, the bigger that piece is. The smaller that pie is, the smaller that piece is. I believe collaboration and cooperation and transparency is paramount at companies and unions, and that's the big reason why that I went into the labor side or into the company side, because there's too big of a disconnect. That makes the relationship way more challenging and difficult than it needs to be. It's a matter of understanding, working together, because the bottom line is we need each other. It has to be a win-win situation. Noah got a little bit off, but what always gets me is when people start talking about unions, the people that talk the most are the ones that know the least. Or they have one experience about something, and they want to take that experience and they want to say, well, here we go, here's what we do. Okay? And that's what really gets me when we talk about public employees, we talk about people's rights. So,
oh, that's good. That's good. You're in good shape. That was we didn't want to cut you off. That was some good discussion. Sam, we'll give you 2 minutes to answer that same question since we've elongated that a little bit. So go ahead.
I think okay, let's actually repeat the question.
Have you been a member of a union?
Okay, first question. I think I was born after they were outlawed. No, I'm just kidding. Never, no, I have not been.
What are your thoughts in terms of the powers that unions have or the problems that unions have?
First, I think they've been weakened, unfairly so, by decades of negative, undeserved perception and attention. In a day and age of corporate media, that makes sense. It's in the interest of corporate media to make people scared of people unionizing and getting together, demanding their rights. Where have I heard that before? I think the greatest movement in this country was the civil rights movement. With Martin Luther King, who one of the first things that started the civil rights movement was labor rights. Meeting up with African Americans to request, nicely and peacefully request, better pay, better treatment. And then from that, you go into the civil rights, and I think the rest is history. Now, why do I mention that? When people say right to work, Martin Luther King said, don't be fooled by that. There is no right in it, and it doesn't work. So why I bring this up now is the fact that it has been maligned unfairly over the decades. I actually did not know right to work was an issue in MLK's time. So I profess ignorance until I read about it. And even at that time, he was fighting for it. And I feel like even today, we still have our many battles for civil rights in this country, not just based on race, but also socioeconomic factors as well.
Thank you. Fred, you kind of look like you got slapped in the face when Sam said that he feels that unions have been weakened. Do you want to respond?
Well, I wasn't slapped in the face. I had another thought process about unions. I get kind of passionate about that. I've lived it, and I know it. And their power is when they care about their brother and sister, and they reach out to them in need. We take hits on the head. We get a lot of things happen, but we still stick together. And the brotherhood. We talk about all kinds of movement. Labor's always been there, but yet, we're a threat, evidently. And so that really hits home to me. And I'm trying to filter this.
There might be kids watching on Facebook.
So I'm passionate about the labor movement, and I think about the things that we've accomplished over the years. We talk about the UAW, AFL-CIO, the Teamsters, building trades, steel workers, iron workers, carpenters, the whole gambit. All we're trying to do is jobs, but get paid a decent living wage, and have decent benefits and health care, and support our families, and reach out to others to help them.
So to clarify, you're undecided on how you feel about unions.
If you give me some time to think about that, I'll let you know next time.
There you go. Sam, do you have any additional thoughts on that? Ways to support unions, things of that nature?
I think as it stands right now, business has enough advocates for it. Everything from quarterly earning reports on Wall Street to governors and candidates having their pockets lined with their campaign donations to thank you. To even cartoon shows being corporate finance. Now, I'm not anti-corporate. I have my own business. I am pro-capitalist. I'm not Che Guevara or whatever. I'm not Bernie Sanders. He's still cool, but my point is you can be capitalist and fiercely capitalist, but at the same time be for the common folk and knowing that, just like there's a quote by John F. Kennedy I like, and it is to the effect of, if I can't defend the many that are poor, or fight for the many that are poor, how can I defend the few that are rich, or something to that effect? And what I mean by that is business and corporate just have enough advocates, from TV channels down to cartoons, down to everything. And I think at least we should, at the very least, have a commissioner of labor that is fiercely only pro-labor, to the point where you can get stuff done for them, stuff done for labor. That doesn't mean kicking business out at the door, but it does mean that their interests, you can collaborate and compromise on like the mechanics of policy, but I don't think you can compromise on principles and values. And I just feel like that's one of those things that elected officials should aspire to be or to have.
Thank you very much.
And that's not like a rebuttal of Fred. It's just kind of my thinking. And
Gotcha.
yeah.
Okay, so the outgoing labor commissioner has said that the department really struggles to hire, train, and keep employees. And she suggested that the problem is with salaries being too low, so she suggested raising salaries. Do you support that? And then If you do, where does the money come from? If you don't, why not?
Okay, you guys are gonna get tired of me of saying, looking at it as an engineer, but that's my academic upbringing, so I'm gonna say that again. So, having said that, I want to put money off to the side for a moment and look at other factors. One thing I always believed in was workplace environment, emotional intelligence. How do people feel when they go to work and go back home? And it's not just about getting a good paycheck, but it's also feeling like you are of value. That human and mankind has always appreciated the creation of value and progress. And why I say that is let's look at, are people happy when they go to work and come back home? Are they being treated all right? Are they given goals that they can attain? And can they aspire to better themselves on a daily basis? And then when that can be answered, and we can eliminate that as a potential cause, we can look at pay and how that ties in vice versa and going forward. So I think I answered your question. I don't know if I gave you a definite.
You have anything clear?
Well, I was so do you agree with that?
I disagree with raising salary right off the bat. And when I went into my engineering spiel, I meant I'm going to look at it a different way. I'm not going to look at throw dollars at a problem sort of way. I'd rather look at it, I guess, organically. So let's start with a human being and then work our way back up to HR.
Thank you.
So I don't support throwing money at first. So.
Fred, same question to you.
Well, go ahead and repeat the question.
Claire?
Absolutely. So outgoing Labor Commissioner Melissa McLaughlin of Houston has said that the department really struggles to recruit, train, and keep employees at the Department of Labor, and she suggested that that was a problem with salaries. So she suggested raising salaries, or she has suggested raising salaries. Do you agree with that proposal?
I do. I agree, because you get what you pay for. Oftentimes companies want to hire people, they want to hire them, pay them 10, 11 bucks an hour, but they want a $20 an hour worker. We need the best workers that we can get within our government, and you're going to have to pay them. And I saw their salaries, I saw their wages. I haven't seen their roles and responsibilities in complete detail. People have to have a living wage, and you don't cut government on the backs of the people. You don't cut government on the backs of the public sector. And let me say this, and I'm get off a little bit, but on union dues, I've heard this crap time and time again from the federal about taking wages out or taking union dues out of teachers' checks to the public sector, because people don't know that they do not use union dues for political action. There's a political action committee. And so therefore, we're not going to pay them to run against us, or we're not going to pay them. Union dues do not go towards us. I just want to make that real clear, because there's such a misconception, but yes.
Perfect. Thank you, gentlemen.
Wait, can I ask a follow-up question?
Sure.
Okay. Sorry.
People's stomachs start to grumble. It's our fault, but yeah. No.
But I just wondered if you have a plan for where to get the money to fund the salaries.
Well, you just asked a question earlier about the fines, about giving it back to the general fund. So if we give everything back, then it's real easy to say we don't have the money. So my thought is we take a hard look. I mean, people ask, what are you going to do on day one? Well, you go in, you got to evaluate what you've got. You evaluate what the problems are. You build off of what's working, and what's not working, you work to change it. But you reach out to those to get their input. Just to come in, there may be some people that don't need a raise. But we've got to pay people for their talent, to keep skilled. We talk about it all, those on unemployment, those on welfare. We can't let our state workers believe that nobody get a job, so let's go work for the state. We've got to pay them a decent wage, and we've got to figure out a way to go about doing that. And you're not going to do it by keep cutting taxes on the rich and then sticking it to the middle class. That's got to stop. We talk about tax cuts. We don't get tax incentives. What about a company? If you're going to do tax cuts, how about when you invest back into your business, when you invest back into the people, then we'll give you a tax incentive. But just to give a tax cut up front, what this got to do with it, that's how you fund it. It doesn't take a rocket science to figure a lot of this out, because wait a minute, that's a Democrat idea, or wait a minute, that's a Republican idea. This isn't about Democrat or Republican. This This is about the people of this great state, which I've been a part of for 63 years.
Thank you very much.
I'm almost afraid to ask, but if if there's one thing you believe the Department of Labor and the Labor Commissioners should be doing that they aren't doing now, what is it?
Well, first, let me just apologize. I'm a passionate individual, and I'm persistent. So I'm not mad, but I get a little passionate. So I've been told by my wife that I get animated a little bit. So I apologize. So I'll try to keep it down a couple octaves.
You're fine.
Now,
You're fine.
to answer the question, is what I would change is what I would, okay. Right now, I'm not absolutely certain. Because again, I've reached out to the labor commissioner to have a discussion, just to get kind of an idea, not try to get any kind of insight or inside connection, but what are some of the things that are working, what is not working? What are some things that she started that she would like to see continue, so forth and so on. I think anybody that says they would just go into any job and they're going to change something might want to take and look at the atmosphere, look at the environment that they're in, before they make those decisions.
Thank you very much. No, that's good. Sam, same question to you.
Could you just go ahead and repeat it so I can collect my thoughts?
Is there one thing that the Department of Labor and the Labor Commissioner isn't doing that you believe they should be doing?
I think the Department of Labor and the head of the Department of Labor, the Commissioner of Labor, needs to increase exposure of the department to the people it serves. What that means is a lot of people don't know what a Commissioner of Labor does. That's, I think, the first question I always get. Partly because in 46 of 50 states, I believe, they are just picked by the governor, and that's the end of it. When people don't know what you do, it's really hard to get them to really understand what kind of value you bring to them. So I feel like exposure, I feel like we need to speak to the people we serve in the language that they understand, whether it's social media, whether it's YouTube, whether it's whatever new ways of communication, letting people know what we do, what we can do for them, what we are doing on their behalf, and if there are any issues or matters or concerns that they feel need to be addressed, that we are an avenue for that to be done, and so forth.
Could I say that I totally agree with that? I mean, there's a lot of candidates that are running for labor commissioner that don't know what's entailed in the job, so just saying.
Thank you very much. And now,
Both of you gentlemen, I think that you have shown a tremendous amount of respect for each other, and I genuinely appreciate that. You've shown us a really good side of politics, and now I'd like to put that to an end. So, Sam, I'm going to have you, if you don't mind, turn to Fred and address him directly and tell him why you think that you would be the better choice for labor commissioner.
You're welcome. Supposed to respect my elders, but I gotta. Ouch. No, I meant that in a good way. In a good way. Tonight, this is the first time I've actually really met Fred. I was creeping on his Facebook page, and I know what he looks like, kind of how he is, but I do feel his passion here tonight, and I think that's something that sometimes we can say is lacking in politics sometimes, but I think sometimes there's too much of it. And why I bring that up is I'm not, I don't know if it's my academic preparation or if it's my professional experience, but I've always looked at things methodically. I've always thought of things politically on how to go at problems. Passion is one of the tools I would use, but I feel like I would have other analytical and technical tools that would help with that. However, at the end of the day, I think I do believe in the Abraham Lincoln idea of team of rivals, and what I mean by that is I respect his and I admire his not only his military service but also his service in industry and academia. I think one of the most amazing things is when somebody can spend so many years in the military or in private sector, but also can teach. I did see you rate my professor rating, so oh, you're doing pretty good. Your students like you. So I was going to use that against you, but I couldn't find anything negative. So,
Well, now you might.
yeah, I could leave some reviews for you tonight, but
Just left that alone.
Yeah. I'm gonna hire a little army. No. But having said that,
You're the better guy because?
I am the better guy because I think it's a matter of perspective and vision. Something that is not affected by length of experience. What vision means being, I have a different vantage point, and when I brought that Reagan quote about age, I was kind of joking, but even age and generation wise, and looking at things from my end, looking at how the new economy is coming to be the new gig economy with Uber, Grubhub, how this new economy is more of a service economy than a goods economy. For example, just this week, President Trump told Justin Trudeau that we have a deficit. We don't have a deficit with Canada. We actually have a surplus. Why? Because you count for services and goods. So the economy of today is not the economy of yesteryear. We're more of a service-oriented economy. I feel like I've seen that from day one, and I feel like going forward, that's I think one of the examples of benefits that I feel like makes me a better candidate. But
Wonderful.
having said that, I think that the Democrat, regardless, would be much better than anybody on the other side. So that's all I can do.
Thank you very much.
Fred, your turn.
What was the question again? I just want to be clear. I don't want to get carried away. Try not to anyway.
Address Sam and tell him why you're the better candidate.
Well, Sam, it comes down to this. It's experience. Why do you think I'm as passionate as I am about this? And that's because of the experience I have done and felt in real life. Now, I understand what you're saying. Being a new views, I've seen your Facebook page. I think you're a bright young man. I think you've got a lot to learn. I was told the same thing one day. I was a 30-year-old man who thought I could conquer the world. A couple of guys told me, said, okay, what about this? Well, what you need to do is follow the old dog a little bit to learn from them. Because at 30, sometimes we think we're invincible. At 40, we start realizing that we're not quite as invincible as we thought. Then all of a sudden, one day we wake up after that, and we think, oh man, I still got a lot to learn. I'm still learning. I value you. I value input. I don't want to say a time. I value people's input. So I think what I stand over you, or not stand over, what I have above you is the experience, the knowledge, real life experience, not perceived. That's not a fault. That's just a fact of life. And again, there's some things with technology that I need to learn from, but we can learn from each other. So,
Is there a vice commissioner of labor?
okay. So I just want to say, again, thanks to the sponsors for having this. I've enjoyed this. Get to learn a little bit about me, learn about Sam. It's important that we make some changes. It's important that we make a difference. I think there's some distinct differences between myself and all of the other candidates. Look forward to after June 26th, sorry Sam, that I'll be able to debate and have a lively discussion with some of the others. And if it doesn't go my way, then okay. Then I wish you the best.
So be friends.
I've got different plans. So I'm just saying, I need your vote. I need your support. We're Democrats running in a Republican state. We can't change things if we keep doing things the same way. To Sam's point, there's a thin line between a hero and a zero. And I've been both. I know what it's like. I will fight for the people of this great state. I thank you for listening. I thank you for your time. God bless you, and God bless Oklahoma.
Thank you very much, Fred. Really appreciate that. Sam, you have 2 minutes as well.
Okay, I'm gonna actually stick to my script because I prepared this, so I don't care what you guys say. But
Sounds good.
I had mentioned Bob, Better Oklahoma Blueprint. You can go to sambob2018.com or voteforsam.org. But here I go. I am an unconventional candidate, obviously, so I want to leave you guys in an unconventional way by speaking words that are not mine, but that of my hero who was a champion for labor and civil rights, and that of which ultimately cost him his short and beloved life. And here I go. I want to ask you a question, and that is, what is your life's blueprint? Whenever a building is constructed, you usually have an architect, engineer, who draws a blueprint, and that blueprint serves as the pattern, as the guide. And a building is not well erected without a good, solid blueprint. When you discover that blueprint, set out to execute it as if God Almighty called you at this particular moment in history to do it. Don't just set out to do a good job. Set out to do such a good job that the living, the dead, and the unborn couldn't do it any better. If you are a street sweeper, sweep streets like Michelangelo painted pictures. Sweep streets like Beethoven composed music. Sweep streets like Shakespeare wrote poetry. Sweep streets so well that all the hosts of heaven and earth will have to pause and say, here lived the great street sweeper who swept his job well. Be a bush if you can't be a tree. If you can't be a highway, just be a trail. If you can't be the sun, be a star. For it isn't by size that you win or fail. Be the best of whatever you are. However young you are, you have a responsibility to seek to make your nation a better nation in which to live. You have a responsibility to seek to make life better for everybody. And so, you must be involved in the struggle for freedom and justice. We must keep moving, we must keep going. If you can't fly, run. If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. By all means, keep moving. Oklahoma, let's keep moving. Let's keep progressing. Let me, Mis-soum, an engineer with a blueprint, the Better Oklahoma Blueprint, aka Bob, elect me and Bob for Oklahoma Commissioner of Labor, and I really seriously do mean that. So thank you, and God bless, guys.
Thank you very much.